Options nice. I have a buddy who went there.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're just fortunate that we can give our kids what we can give them.
right. Yeah.
Okay, okay, we are live on YouTube.
All right. I don't know what I'm looking at, or where I'm supposed to be looking.
You can look at the people at the
By two-
meeting. No, you're
I
fine.
can see, but
You probably won't be able to see you.
It's fine.
I can move over if you want.
Okay.
Oh, why don't you take the head table right here?
Yes. Sorry, it'll make my face look even weirder and bigger from this close. All right, welcome to the Open Space and Recreation Plan Ad Hoc Committee meeting for the town of Yarmouth, Friday, March 10th, 2023 at 9 a.m. This is to formally advise that as required by MGL 30A, squiggle, 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 22, and an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations signed into law July 16, 2022, that this here OSRP Ad Hoc Committee will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted on the notice of meeting. Public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. Is that everything?
You're awesome.
All right, first subject on the agenda is the OSRP update. Who gets to go first with the debrief on the open house? I assume we're going to stay in order.
Yes, I think that's best. I think Cassie can
All right.
kind of go over her memo that that's in your packets from
Yes.
February 24th.
Cassie, you cool with that?
I'm cool with that.
All right, let's do it. It's yours. It's your turn.
Sure. Let me share screen. I can't see everyone, but I can see most of you. It's nice to see Will in person. Well, not for me, but for everyone else.
We already did, I didn't have to be here today. I already met you in person a month ago.
There we go.
Anyway, hi, thank you.
All right. So we took all of the results that we wrote down and heard through at the public meeting on the 8th of last month. And I think we'd love for the committee to read through this report and make sure that things that you heard and discussions that you had, maybe one-on-one discussions, are represented within this document. We essentially just went through what materials were presented, in what way, kind of the order of the evening, what the presentation contents were, what the topic tables were, and what materials were on those tables, and then documented all of the general feedback that we heard during the Q&A session following the slides that were presented, which is what's shown on the screen right now. We included any pertinent information that people provided around, like where their favorite parks and the entry board. It's fairly self-explanatory. I think there was, some pages are not included in this version of it, but in the back of the packet that I provided, we had just included all of the boards as well, the JPEGs of the original boards, just for documentation. So if folks want to see that, we can provide it as well.
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet. Can I propose a way of?
Oh, it is? Okay.
Can I propose a way of talking about this memo? Just so we.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I was just looking at the survey and I got mixed up with this. Yeah, so it is in the packet. You're right. I'm sorry about that.
So Patsy, if it's okay with you, because I heard you ask for any clarifications on things. And of
Yep.
course, this is the kind of committee where we're not going to spend the time going through this memo because we've all read it, because that's the kind of committee this is. Just saying, because we're not going to spend the time reading the memo when we should have read it already, thanks to Kathy and your organization. So can I just quickly go around the table? Is there anybody that wants to clarify or edit or make any updates to this memo? I think that's a good place to start. I have a couple little things, but I don't want to be the first person to go. So Steve, you want to go first?
I got nothing.
Great, Christine?
You include typos?
I think we might as well. I mean, just call out the
Yeah.
page number and we'll let Cassie
The
take a look
the
at it.
second page where they talk about accidents on Union Street and White Rock Road is Starbucks Lane, not land.
That was fine, me.
And of course, on the maps, it's Gray's Beach, not Gary's Beach.
Oh,
yeah, that one. That was on.
And the first bullet point is about 2/3 of the way down. Starbuck Lane. And then, you know, you can just search for Gary's and make it straight. It's all good. Thank you.
What was
Bill.
what was the second one that was noted?
On your maps. Do you have a favorite park or open space? It's Gary's Beach, it should be Gray's Beach.
Northwest corner on the first
Yeah,
map page,
that-
page 7.
Topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, they're all Gary's Beach. That could be corrected.
Speaking of typos,
You'll see, you actually corrected it. It just
On the
needs to be
map, yeah.
corrected on the actual map itself.
Just so that it's in it, and then the next presentation, it's correct.
Mhm.
Same thing on the open space trails map, same
yeah,
thing on the facility, all of them. Okay. Yeah, we'll have that. Thank you, Christine.
These boards, they're just images. We're not gonna, we
Yeah.
can make them, but
Well,
we'll
but also
correct
as we
it.
get to the final product. I
Yeah.
think important to get it right.
So it's correct later.
Bill?
Just one quick thing on page 6 of the memo. Under topic 4, land use environmental
Yeah.
protection, map board sticky notes. I don't know if there's a way to follow up with, there's probably not, the people who pose these questions, but I'm not sure what they're referring to when they say
So-
polluted space by Englewood Beach.
That's one I circled because
Yeah.
I was at that table, so I believe it's my terrible handwriting. I believe it's public space. I don't
Okay,
believe it's polluted.
ah,
That was, in fact, I tried to look on the JPEG because the JPEG had my very terrible handwriting on this 2 stickies. On page 10, and I don't believe it's polluted. It had to do with just,
Right,
um,
be an issue with the shellfish.
yeah, it's not polluted, it's for sure not polluted, I just can't read my terrible handwriting. That's the Sully's Way one, and there was a lady that,
Yeah, we spoke
It's
to
not
her,
used,
but
right?
that's
So-
private, it's not a town way.
That's
correct.
and I know it looks like, it might have been, and it looks like it might say polluted, but I think it says either.
Potential, look like
I
potential.
think it's potential. Actually, now that I look at it more, and
Does-
so
it looks like potential to me.
my terrible handwriting.
what was that referring to, though?
I think,
I
so
know, but what?
I think it was, just gotta think a second. I should have put more clarity on the sticky.
I
Go
can
ahead.
tell one of
Thank
the
you.
things that came up was, some people were asking because it says contaminated shellfish, no shellfishing. And they did ask me, they said, oh, it's
Right.
safe to swim, and I said, no.
Right.
It,
That
the
throws
shellfish is
outside.
contaminated and they're here in clean water
Yeah.
to clean them out.
Right.
And that made it, but a lot of people see that sign and go,
Right, right,
Oh,
yeah,
good point.
that, and I understand that
Yeah.
happens all the time, yeah,
So let's
I
go
think
with that,
that's
because
probably-
I can't remember the other reason. So
yeah,
I'm gonna say Ellie's right. Bill, anything else?
no,
Thank you. Hi. Okay, well, Bill found one of them, because I was like, I don't think we're doing it. My only other one is, which I just didn't know the answer to, which is page 5. About a third of the way down under roadway, sidewalk and paths. I live and work right on White Rock Road. And I'm just curious.
That's the N-Star property, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
they're talking about the N-Star property,
that's-
whether or not it's being used.
In my head, I just don't think of it as White Rock Road at that point, but that's okay. I just wanted to make sure it was the same piece.
I
that
think
we-
I think it's N-Star property,
yeah,
All right, that's fine.
but I'm still
Um,
working on.
no, of course. I just needed to get that
I
clarified.
don't know how to
Okay,
picture
thank
it.
you.
nope, I'm good.
Okay, Kathy?
I had looked at this, but on page 3, single-use parks, amenities, dog parks, disc golf, do you mean golf and driving ranges? I didn't notice that before. It says gold. Is that something I don't know? Is it gold?
Oh, probably
Something?
golf,
Okay,
Yeah,
first bullet point under topic 1.
It,
Yeah, sorry, I should have caught that, Cassie. I didn't see it before.
it's a typo.
Cool.
There's
It
things
should
I
be
don't know about, so I didn't know that there's.
Gold mine?
I would love a gold range. That would be wonderful. Thing.
Leave it over. Kathy, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Nate, what do you got? Anything?
Well, nothing specific about comments, things like that. I was taken by now I'm really interested in pickleball because pickleball came up a whole bunch of times during. the-
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there was
We're
one
gonna
person
get
that
there,
just
I
kept
promise.
writing it.
Because
I thought I need to get up to speed on this. What's,
Yeah.
play it.
we will get to it, specifically the dynamic tension of having pickleball at Flax Pond and summer camp and that whole crazy, who deserves what,
One very
when,
vocal
especially
person
when.
there.
So we will circle back to that, Nate, I promise.
No problem.
Anything else about the memo for Cassie? Kathy,
No.
No, I'm good.
anything else you want to say about the memo, or are we good? Or the debrief, Kathy?
I think the voting jars were helpful to see. I think the top
Yes.
two were indoor rec. We had
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of
Uh,
surprising.
we had an advocate for the indoor rec at the table, so
Who was that?
that was the highest, and then trails obviously were the second highest, but that started to really come into alignment with many of the other options that were offered. So indoor rec clear and away was the most heavily weighted option.
Yeah. Even though, as Bill and I were saying before the meeting started, we don't seem to have real winter anymore
Right.
in Yarmouth. We have to allow for the fact that it might come back. And also just, even if it's not real winter anymore, it's been pretty wet.
Yeah,
So I think
Right.
that's some of that factor, of course.
Right.
And also I think it determines a lot about whether you do have kids. I think that's a
Yeah.
huge factor. And
Yeah.
guess what?
Yeah.
Even if you don't have kids in your home, lots of people, from what I could collate going through here, want an indoor place to walk, much less indoor place to swim or recreate more actively if you're younger.
Right.
So I'm not surprised by that response to the jars. Is anybody else?
No, winter on the Cape can get pretty icky.
It can, and right, even if it's not snowy, it can just be wet and cold.
And I'm sorry, was the technical term icky?
Icky.
Icky.
right. For the minutes, it's the.
It's icky.
There's been some icky days.
Please quote me.
Give it to Ellie.
It's one of those, like, it could be a foot of snow instead it's an inch of rains.
Yeah.
Right.
36 and raining.
Yeah.
Or
And that's uncomfortable when you go outside,
Right.
you don't wanna go,
you're working on something.
right,
Can't play in
Right.
rain.
No. That's true.
When I moved here 15 years ago, you had 5 days of freezing where you could stay on your car.
Right.
We haven't had that in a long.
Right. I definitely
Need
so.
5 days in a row.
oh, yeah, yeah, we even though we had that one day of -8.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, oh god, everybody's gonna think they can go in the pond. Fortunately, it didn't happen here, it happened up in Wareham, people went out on the pond with a dog and went in,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
You should put a notice on the reverse 911.
yeah,
When something like that happens, warning people that you need 5 days.
yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Every day. Today is day 3 of the.
Right.
Yeah.
4 days,
Yeah,
right.
it's great. People don't know you need 5 days.
I only go out if I see ice fishers.
True.
Drill a hole, not fall in, then it's safe.
Right. Although I did see for the only time this winter, that day and the day after, right at the corner of White Rock and Union Street, on that little tiny piece of that bog.
Oh, that
the
was
front
fun.
piece, there was some skating.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
that was only
Yeah.
3 feet deep.
right,
So that warmed my heart for a minute. Anything, I mean, we don't have winter yet, but there's no global warming. Okay. So are you ready to move on to the survey results? Yes.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask, because I was thinking about this as I was reading through this. We could take the whole rest of the meeting and talk about this. And I don't know if that's the best use of our time. But I do feel like we do need to devote a chunk to maybe some of the, if anybody pulled out any themes, which I think obviously Nate has identified and I was gonna bring up.
Yeah.
About pickleball. What do you suggest, Kathy?
I think
about that?
Cassie has done a little spreadsheet
yeah.
that kind of talks about some of the things that what she's representing there is a current list of goals and action items. So if everyone hasn't grabbed the 11/17, please do so. And then next to that in red, there's some additional information like things that were highlighted during the survey. And then additionally, at the end, there was some other highlighted topics from the survey. So
So, yeah, okay, that will definitely help guide us. So who should
Well,
lead this discussion?
I think
I can
Cassie-
do like I can do just like a high level takeaways from the survey, if that's
Cool.
helpful.
Can we start
Just-
there and then any particular individual?
Yep.
Like, oh my God, I felt this. We'll go.
Yeah, and then we can go in, so kind of from the survey, then we'll get into the goals and action items spreadsheet, and that's where we're really taking the 2015/2018 goals and truing those up with today.
Okay.
So that's what you're looking at in the 11/17. So themes, just gonna be scrolling through on my screen, so I'll be looking in this direction, but so we had about 470 responses on the survey. It's now closed. So fairly good response. People feel that they do have parks and open space close to them within their neighborhood. So there was no, sentiment like, I can't get to the open spaces. I don't feel like there's open space in my neighborhood. So that was great. The breakdown of different neighborhoods. So in Yarmouthport, people of course rated Grays Beach as the highest, most frequented. I think it's interesting to note the ones that people don't know about, which are
Yeah.
Bud Carter, Calorie Darling, and Crab Creek Conservation Area. And like Fred Thatcher Playground, people are saying they're never going to that. So that was an interesting finding. I don't know,
I
if
think it has
that's
to do with naming. I think it has to do with, I don't think anybody calls it the Fred Thatcher Playground, at least as far as I know. It's the 6A playground, or it's the
Center Street or
Got it.
something. I think it has to do, I mean, we had people who didn't know what Peter Homer Park was
Yeah.
because they don't refer to it that way. Again, I don't want to make too much out of this, but I think it's a factor
Yeah.
in what things are.
No,
named.
I was gonna say that is exactly one of the things that I was seeing as a trend was like just general information. I think is always really a thing that we see. Just providing more information about where these places are and how to get to them and what they offer is something people would appreciate. At West Yarmouth, it was interesting to know that there were no responses within the frequently column of people going to these places frequently. You started to see more, the higher percentages in occasionally. So that was Bayview Beach, Sandy Pond, and Seagull at like 50% response. And then people responded that they didn't even know about Cirilla Conservation Area, which was surprised me because there's been a lot of work and investment in that trail. And then most of the responses for all of the parks listed in that section were for never going there. So just the use of parks and open space in West Yarmouth is less than in other areas within Yarmouth. And I'm just curious from the group, is that like something that has been known? Is that the sentiment that there's less use in that area of town, or is that a new finding?
I think you have like Bassall Boardwalk and Yarmouthport gets such a wide array of people, of users, whereas we have some areas in West Yarmouth that a very specific user group will go to. Like we have hunters that go to certain spots on West Yarmouth Road, but like everybody goes to the boardwalk to look at the views. So it's just in West Yarmouth, some of our areas are more,
The bogs maybe on
the
West
bogs.
Road,
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, that gets a lot of use.
a lot of dog walking and just walking.
Yeah,
That was a big write-in, actually.
Yes.
yeah,
The West.
Sorry.
yeah, no, that's a good point.
One that jumps out to me, anyone else?
Yeah,
Yeah, people not in the woods are walking around the bogs and it's all Seralia,
yeah,
But even like at the northeast corner of Buck Island in West Yarmouth, that's that bog there was, I think, a lot of people were commenting on that, like, as a write-in of other things that they go to.
yeah.
Mhm.
I was surprised so many people went to Baxter Grist Mill. They actually went there.
yeah.
I mean, we all.
They can admit they drove by it. I don't know.
Right, so
That seems,
I just thought, yeah, I drive by it and I always look and I enjoy it, but I'm surprised that people are actually going there.
You don't see, because parking's an issue, you
Yes.
don't see like when you drive by a
Yeah.
ton of people there.
I have some beautiful shots of sunrise.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. People are going at different
If you're there
times.
5 or 6 in the morning.
What is the technical name? There is no technical name for those cranberry bogs, right?
Well,
Just
I think the
cranberry.
technical name, there is like. Because we manage the lease, the
Right.
North Bogs, I think is called Oliver Bogs.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what.
But
the-
in other words, none of the ones that were given as a choice,
They don't
right?
include
Because
them.
they're not,
Yeah,
right, because they're not.
Could it again be a naming issue then that's happening where people are using these places, but they don't know the names that we're calling them?
Yeah, I think so.
possibly, I mean.
That's why I
These
brought
weren't
it
even
up, just
listed.
because it's not even listed.
Right, it's not even
Wasn't
listed.
even a choice.
Because those town-owned cranberry bogs, like, we don't target it as a recreational area and encourage people to bring their dogs there, but it's become an unofficial dog park. I mean, the town has a lease with a cranberry grower, based on a maintenance and profit share, arrangement. But it's open, part of the lease dictates that it's open to passive recreation, we just don't promote it, so there's not a sign out front that says, please come here and bring your dogs. But
But there is a sign that says pick up your poop.
and which gets ripped down as soon as we put it up,
Yeah.
and the one that says keep them on a leash,
Right.
immediately it gets ripped down when we put it up,
Like, who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm gonna rip down a tile?
right? Because
As I'm walking.
right, because if I
You-
let them off the leash, they're not gonna write me a ticket if the sign's not in.
Exactly.
Yes, we don't.
Didn't,
This little discussion though just ties into what I was saying earlier about Fred Thatcher Playground. I honestly, I've got a poster
I think with
poster
Kelly-
from it that says Fred Thatcher Playground, because I think I
Right.
made a donation when it opened, but I don't know of anybody that calls it that.
I've never
Whereas
heard
the
it
bogs, I
called
didn't know-
that until today.
and I didn't know that the bogs actually had a name. I just called them the West Yarmouth Road
yeah.
bogs.
I know the north and south bogs.
There you go. So anyway, I'm just. That's the thing. I'm assuming, Cassie, you work with lots of towns where people that live here say, oh, you mean the Smith place, and they're like,
Right,
what's that?
right.
Well, I still call
Yeah.
Smuggler's Point or
Okay,
Lighthouse
yeah.
Beach.
So Bass River Beach.
Lighthouse Beach, and I
Yeah.
just have a lighthouse there.
Just more,
Wow.
just more frustration. trying
I
to do
think
your
it gets-
job with that.
I think it gets into maybe having a map or something that shows the locations, but someone mentioned that of all of the things and all in one place. We have great conservation maps, but it doesn't include things like the Historic Society.
Right, the trails behind the
Trails,
post
yeah.
office, quote unquote.
So maybe it's a case of, gets back to what you were talking about, more communication and information, Cassie, because I
Yeah.
did notice that as well, that I think people are looking for more. I think that was also something that was pervasive throughout the visioning process, that people want more communication and more information and more easier to get to. And it's-
But now the town has hired somebody,
well, not yet, but it's on
or
the
is in the
town,
process of
yeah,
hiring
yeah,
somebody.
a communications director, which would be
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I'd like to take the town website and literally throw it into the Bass River.
Mhm.
And start over. So, I mean, I do think all these things do
Polluting.
connect to each other.
We have angle.
Oh, yeah, right. That's not, that would be that would be on my mislabeled sticky note here. So. Sorry, Kathy.
Sure.
Cassie,
So-
sorry. go.
I'll just take 2 more minutes and I'm sure there'll be things that we will come out in the wash when we talk about the spreadsheet as well. So in South Yarmouth, of course, Smuggler's Beach was the highest rated. It was highest rated amongst everything. But in close second was Grace Beach. So I think those are no surprise to this group. Flax,
Wait, Great Beach in South Yarmouth?
No, that's not there.
Smuggler's Beach in South Yarmouth.
Smugglers and Flax.
Yeah.
I believe it was Flax came in second.
I'm on South Yarmouth, but I'm saying overall amongst.
Overall,
Because
Yes.
remember we broke
Oh,
in
sorry.
those
Oh,
questions
yeah,
and overall across the whole town. I think it was Grace Beach that was next, but yeah, in the question on South Yarmouth, we were looking at Smuggler's Beach and Flax Pond as being the highest rated. There were a lot of written comments about Flax Pond. There were ones we had talked about previously that like Anniversary Park that people didn't know about, we didn't know about either, so that was no surprise. But you know,
Oh.
lots of folks are coming to South Yarmouth to go and visit those open spaces. So there was the most ratings, highest ratings within that question. People are going to your parks and open spaces often, 3 or more times per week, which is great. Most people are going during working hours, so that tells me that most folks who are going are not working or have different working schedules
Or go on the
than
weekends.
Or right,
typical
or the
nine
The
to
weekends.
five, or going on the weekends. Yep.
Yeah.
But there's like the early morning and the late evening were less popular options. And then question 9 was I felt like this is where I was starting to see getting the word out was becoming an important thing about, why, if using the parks more frequently, why do you not? And it's just that people don't know where these, some of these places are. So it wasn't anything about quality of place, or it was more like, I'm too busy. I, can't get out as much as I'd like to, more personal reasons and things like that. So, people are driving to their open spaces. We saw a lot of comments around would love more sidewalks, more
Yes.
ways to bike to places, feel, a connectivity plan or ways to connect their open spaces, and then making that known through informational purposes, brochures and mapping and things like that. And then in terms of items that we started to see what became more popular amongst the groups, we were seeing within Yarmouth, more playgrounds, soccer, and walking and jogging. I think those were what people are doing now, and how they're using their open spaces. And some of them, obviously we know winter is not really a thing. We just talked about that, but people are leaving to go and do their winter sports elsewhere. I think that's, kind of an obvious.
I would just point out that hockey and ice skating is probably done at Tony Kent, which is out of town, but that is a joint venture between the town of Yarmouth and the town of Dennis. It just happens to be located in the town of Dennis. There might be people who don't know about that you can go to that.
Yep.
But it was partially paid for and by the town of Yarmouth TPA, I believe.
Yeah. And then I'll just end with the survey priorities, which are listed on the 11x17. In full disclosure, Lauren went through that piece of it in more detail. But we were seeing that more, we
What
wanted to
phone
see
number
more on.
You don't, she switched to the big page.
Oh, sorry.
The
Yeah.
big doc.
People wanted to see expansion of programming and activities, more focus on teens and kids, but just more overall, more year-round activities and programs, especially in the winter. So that lends itself to an indoor recreation option. Pickleball came up a lot. That's most all communities are talking about pickleball. You're very much within the mix there. Maintenance of existing facilities came up, and just improving accessibility throughout, to allow for all users to use the parks and open spaces. People want more walking, jogging, and hiking trails. You have so many, and it's great, but people want more. Accessibility came up quite a bit, particularly on playgrounds, playground equipment, and allowing for kind of that ground level access to playgrounds and use of all abilities. Indoor aquatic facility was highly rated, adding bike lanes, adding a community center, expansion of conservation land. We talked a lot about that at the public meeting as well. Adding more soccer facilities, adding a skate park, and adding disc golf options came up. So with that, any comments?
Why don't we let's go around the table again, just so everybody can have an opportunity to be heard. So we'll start opposite this time.
Yeah, I know it's obvious, but it's just important for everyone to just understand the age range of people who answered. Obviously, everyone wants pickleball because it's the age range of people who play pickleball. And I'm glad that schools and playgrounds and team sports came up a lot too, because we don't want to just focus on one part of the population. Yeah, really good results.
Thanks, Brittany. Bill?
No, So I'm just curious, what indoor aquatic facility, is that like a pool or like a?
Water park?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any other comments.
okay, thank you. Christine.
Some of the comments that were made were that some people had a concern that conservation areas would be developed into
Yes,
recreational.
right.
They can't be. They have conservation restrictions. You can't have any buildings or any development on it. So I think maybe that needs to be communicated to people that conservation areas do have restrictions on them.
I think that you can allow passive recreation, but I did get that out of it too, is people weren't interested in leaving our natural areas
That's right.
natural.
Yeah, you're protecting the paths and the trails, but nothing can be developed in conservation areas. And just for your information, I'm now the chair of the Yarmouth Conservation Trust. So I will be protecting them. as well.
Thank you.
Now,
Madam Chair, congrats.
on item goal number 2, a lot of people want, I was very heartened by the fact that people are very interested in protecting open space and acquiring properties and everything, but there's a proposal this year, an article. It's going to be using a lot of the funds that are available. For the next 10 years, I'm only going to have about $200,000 a year for open space acquisitions. And the average acquisition is about $1 million. So for the next 10 years, that would mean only about 2 acquisitions at the most. Because you won't be able to go into undesignated because all of those funds are going to be tied up. So,
I am sorry, but I really need to clarify that because it's not 100% true. Right now, you have in the bank almost $900,000 in open space and
that's earmarked.
No, 900,000 in open space and 900,000 in undesignated, even if you fund everything that's on the annual town meeting. And you get about $2 million each year. That goes $2 million each year from CPA funds.
Okay.
And then a bunch of that goes into undesignated, and undesignated can be used in open space. So I think you were going to have significantly more than $250,000. You already have $900,000 sitting in the bank for an expenditure that you could use that money for.
That's earmarked
Earmarked for what?
for the N-Star acquisition.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you're earmarking it for projects that aren't, I mean, there's no money or no application that's being there. I'm just saying that the you're talking about the Riverwalk Park, and it starts at being like $450,000 from CPA in the first year, down to $350,000 in the 10th year. So there's still significant amount of money, and again, it keeps going up to 2.5% each year with regards to the CPA. So
I disagree with you because I sit on CPA, and if 7 applications come in for historic, we can only fund 5. 2 of those have to be funded through undesignated.
Yeah.
So that undesignated fund is not going to be as much as you say.
This might not be the right venue.
I'm sorry, I just
But
want,
saying
I'm sorry.
that, where people want all these acquisitions, the funds are not going to be there.
Well, at the very least, it's up for debate about how it's all going to play out. And my other quick thought is, just because you apply for something for CPA, does that automatically mean you get it?
No.
So when I heard you say, well, if they apply here, they're going to have to get it from here. Well, it's also up to the CPA to say no, because of some of these either
We've
financial
already said
or
we're going to have to
practical
be very
issues.
frugal for the
Right.
next 10 years.
So I think in general, I think it's important to note that we're always going to be concerned about how we can acquire more open space. And that ongoing dynamic tension about priorities and who and where and when is why we have other committees that get to sink their teeth even deeper into it. So thank you for bringing it up, Christine.
Thank you, Will.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kathy, as well. Steve?
I'm good.
Okay, Kathy?
I guess I do think that hunting concerns were brought up. And so I think maybe we need to express that a little bit. Also is there an updated hunting map? I have a 2013 map.
No, there's not, but
Excuse me for 1 second.
yeah.
Hey, Nate, would you mind muting yourself? Because someone's having a party in your office.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. It's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Unless it's our office. I think it's Nate.
No, it's
Okay, thank you.
No, there's not, but I don't. I would like to see a more comprehensive map, but there's not a lot of changes that warranted doing a new map.
The only reason I bring it up is a lot of the area that's being shown for allowed for hunting is where phase 3 of the Cape Cod Rail Trail is going through.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I think at some point we need to look at that. I don't think you necessarily want people, I don't know. I think it's just, it's a new situation. that
There's
we
gonna
should
be
probably look
behavior
at.
change that's gonna
Right.
have to happen.
So,
You know, people are so
Moving,
good at
moving
change.
targets.
Well, that too, and people are so good at change, aren't they, Steve?
Well,
There, it's on your-
yeah, and we dealt with that a little bit this year on the bike path. That's kind of, whether the bike trail, because it's paved, constitutes 150 feet away from a roadway, from a paved roadway. I kind of make the argument that it does, but I'm trying to still allow and not close down hunting land. And we're gonna get more opposition than you think if we try to close these areas down.
Of course.
They're gonna, people are gonna come out of the woodwork that you didn't think were here.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I get that.
it's an ongoing,
And we have to balance
Balance.
safety and usage of the
Right.
land for all of
Right.
our friends.
right,
Can they hunt around the bogs?
yes,
You have a lot of people, excuse me, walking the bogs, but that doesn't seem to deter them.
now
I don't see people.
There is
wearing
hunting
orange on
allowed.
the Bogs.
there is hunting allowed on the bogs too, but I mean, they're really not out on the bogs. They might be up
In the woodlands.
in the woodlands or on Plastic Pond even, waterfowl hunting, but it's not.
Yeah.
They're not gonna interfere with the bog operations. We wouldn't
Yeah.
allow that.
But on the other side of West Yarmouth Road where the water,
In the well field there, that is open,
right,
cross street from the bogs. There's a big buffer around the police department and the schools, so they can't. Right, there's a fire road that's behind there. They can't hunt on the opposite side of the fire road towards the PD and the schools.
I'm not sure I want to be shooting a gun behind the gate, but.
Yeah.
Can do it though. You can do it.
Could I just clarify one thing, Bill?
Yeah,
Could you just, because I don't think about this as much unless I'm in these kinds of conversations.
yeah.
What are the 3 headlines on hunting season in the town of Yarmouth? Is there a thing? Is that a thing? And can you just remind, just for the record, like when is
Oh,
hunting
sure,
allowed?
yeah. So, well, we try to, which also,
'Cause this is part of the education about
Right.
all the things that we're talking about education and communication. I would just like to
So
hear it
what-
from you.
what we try to do is post signs at a lot of the trailheads where not, and this is what becomes confusing, and I don't know a better way around it. Sometimes we'll put a sign that says caution, hunting allowed in season. And then right next to it, there may be a sign that says no hunting, because that particular spot where we put the sign is
Is
not
no hunting.
huntable, but we're cautioning people that if they enter this trailhead, they may walk into a spot
Down
where they
over
may
there,
encounter hunters.
Over there.
Yes.
That's right where the sign
Right.
is. Okay.
So basically, early fall, we have archery, doesn't really cause any conflicts, typically. And then, the biggest season where you start to see a lot of people and you start to get a lot of conflict, is the Monday after Thanksgiving opens 2 weeks of shotgun season for deer. And,
I had no idea.
Yeah. and waterfowl is, there's different waterfowl seasons through the fall and the winter until the end of January. But
It goes right.
it used to be that like,
It's a state right. This is the state right.
this is,
That's fine.
we don't think, well, we dictate what can be open, but we don't dictate the season.
Right.
So it used to be a week of shotgun season when I started here, the first week of December. And that was a big week, and then it really wasn't busy after that, but then they extended it to 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then after that 2 weeks, it's open for primitive arms, which is muzzle loader season, which didn't used to be a lot of people doing it. Now there's a lot of people hunting
Really?
primitive arms. So now basically you have the whole month of December that is some sort of a gun season for deer.
Okay.
So that's busiest.
Okay.
In terms of conflicts
Yes.
with like other
Yeah.
passive recreation users. Waterfowl's open to the end of January, but like people are sitting on a pond, there's not a lot of conflicts with people walking through the
Or
trails.
biking in the future.
Exactly.
Right. Well, the reason I asked, just to kind of get it out there on the table in this group is
Yeah,
I didn't know 97% of what you just said.
yeah,
Now, that doesn't mean it's your fault.
right,
It's partly my responsibility to learn these things, but I do think it ties into a very big takeaway, which I'm getting from all this, which is we have to over communicate
Communication.
or just increase our communication by 100 billion%. Because I know the conflicts are never going away, but I do feel like even without the contrasting signage, which is
Yeah.
not your fault, even just knowing when the season is, when you walk onto a property that does say,
Right.
just no different than no dogs allowed from X to Y time of the year on beaches. At least people, when they walk in, they understand where they are in time and space. And I'm not so sure, and again, I don't know how it's possible.
right,
We can educate people to say, you know, from November, the first X after Thanksgiving until
Right.
January 1, if
Yeah.
you are here,
Right.
it's possibly going to be
right.
hunting season. And again, I know I'm getting really specific, but I think I meant to keep it
Well, there's a
broader. than
difference
that.
between dogs on leash and hunting season,
Well-
because one you can get killed at. and
No,
the
no,
other one a dog
I
eats.
understand, but you still, but both things should be communicated so that this is about expectations, about when you walk on or participate in a property, sorry.
I think we
Or
should
recreate.
encourage people to wear what,
Orange.
yellow or orange,
Orange.
orange.
Yeah, so state law is for that season. The hunters have to wear 500 square inches of what they call hunter orange or blaze orange. On their head, chest and back. Now, there's nothing saying that anyone else does. We suggest it, but sometimes people that are like emotionally charged and they just had some type of interaction and we sometimes you gotta be careful what you suggest, but well, you should wear, your dog has to be on a leash anyway. That's a town bylaw. So your dog should be on a leash and maybe an orange vest for your dog
I've seen
and
those,
maybe you
yeah.
should wear orange. Well, I'm not gonna go and get something orange. I go on this trail every day.
Right.
And we said, well, you use it all year long.
This 6
And
weeks.
these folks are using it for, periodic.
Good suggestion.
Yeah.
Really good suggestion.
Yeah, so, but we do suggest it, but it's interesting sometimes the responses you get. Some people say, okay, well,
And some say I don't look good in orange.
yeah. Yeah,
I've heard
Right.
that one.
right.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
don't want to buy some orange for my
So-
dog. It conflicts with their
I
fur.
definitely have seen orange vests
Yeah.
being worn on dogs,
Yeah.
and it's.
And the other thing too, we will like it because we patrol heavily during those seasons, especially the first week of shotgun season.
Right.
If we see somebody going in a trailhead with a dog, we'll just nicely say, just so you know, today's the opening day of deer season, just to. And most people are like, oh, yeah, no, we know, okay. But it's just a good little FYI,
Well, my first encounter with the hunters was on the fire road on White Rock Road.
Yeah.
near Woodland. And I said, well, there's no hunting on the historical society
Right.
property or anything. They said, no, they walk all the way down the road over the railroad track to the Boy Scout property.
Right.
They're allowed to hunt up, yes. So I said, as long as you're knowledgeable that there's no hunting here, but the little triangle has a hunting sign on it.
Yeah,
There shouldn't. You can't hunt on 400 square feet of property.
So maybe more clarification and communication is what I'm
Yeah.
kind
And
of
I do
getting
think
at.
that when we start looking at some of the big, where we're going from here kind of steps, I feel like we're gonna be talking about communication.
And I think that's one thing that we should highlight as a takeaway as well. We've been talking about it, but I didn't necessarily see it there. It's just communications.
Yeah.
And information and mapping.
For sure. Kathy, was there
That was,
anything
that
else?
was, that was.
I'm
my
glad
last
you brought
one,
up
yeah.
hunting because it was worth
yeah,
just getting it out there because it is something that while it's somewhat finite, it definitely has an impact
we're not,
exponentially in that finite amount of time
Right.
on town resources as well as
Right.
everybody's mood, or at least some people's mood, good and bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, to
Ellie?
add, mine was
Please.
hunting too, and
Okay.
to add on there, I mean, there's not all of them, but a lot of them in Yarmouth allow hunting, and when you look.
When you say a lot of them.
A lot of the open areas.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, the
Yeah.
trails, the Bud Carter and Water Department land and all that, a lot of those
Yes.
trails. And if you go look at Dennis, there's only 2 areas where they allow hunting. So if you look at Yarmouth and it's wide open and
Sure.
nobody can walk, well, they can. But in Dennis, there's only 2 places that are designated for hunting, which I found kind of interesting.
And without knowing the history of how it got to that
Yeah.
point, it certainly does, I would imagine, would be much easier from an enforcement perspective as well as, well, theoretically.
Yeah.
As well as just everybody kind of knows in Dennis, these are the places you can hunt, whereas in Yarmouth, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, it's also a lot of places.
yeah.
And there's a lot of restrictions on the places like the water department land. Okay, you can hunt there, but you can't hunt over here and you can't hunt over here, but you can hunt here and
Right.
it's just.
Either
very
that or the
confusing.
maps.
Yeah,
Also, you can't hunt within what, 500 feet of a house?
Yeah, so 500 feet of occupied dwelling and 150 feet of paved road.
150 feet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
these are
can't-
Good things.
you can't discharge a firearm or release an arrow within those. So
perimeters.
if you're in a legal area to hunt and you come into what is deemed a safety zone by the state within 500 feet of an occupied dwelling, and people try to get into that with you, well, it's not occupied. But if it looks like, so, you know,
Yeah.
anyway, if you,
I mean, because
Oh,
then
yeah,
we're
they
someone
totally-
is
yeah.
in their other house,
Right,
or they're away
right.
for the holidays.
right, that's, yeah, we're not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
deciding whether.
Yeah.
they're-
We're not legislating,
Right now.
right, we're not legislating what occupies,
Right, so-
that's good.
But, so if somebody's hunting along and they're within that safety zone, just carrying their gun and they're passing. The point is, they know they can't shoot there. That's what constitutes the violation.
Got it.
I have another meeting I have to attend at 10
No.
o'clock, so I'm.
That's more important than this? Amazing, Steve, don't answer that question on camera. Thank you, Steve. Be well. Okay, I'm gonna just round it up. I think this is the right place to just throw our favorite word that begins with P and ends with 2 L's. Pickleball, and I don't mean pool. And I just want to say that it is clear from
Yeah.
reading all these comments that, and I take Brittany's point about who's responding. I get that.
It is popular. I mean.
I totally get it. I do feel like we have, and again, I don't know who on this table was part of all the discussions about placing pickleball at a facility that has such an overwhelming different use,
Mhm.
specifically in the summer. It's almost, after reading all this, and I sort of dawned on me, it's almost like they put pickleball in the middle of the beach. Because literally, when you put the amount of pickleball resources that the town has chosen, when you put them in the middle of literally a summer camp, then that has some strategic and operational, let's just say, challenges. And I think we're hearing it loud and clear. And I think that it would be irresponsible from this group if we didn't at least strongly recommend something in terms of how we can, or strongly recommend that the appropriate parties try to figure out a solution to the challenge of literally, from what I read over and over again, this whole idea that from noon to 5
Yes.
in the summer,
You can't play.
you can't play pickleball, period. There's also the other issue, right? There's also the other issue of the nets being taken down, and other towns don't do that. And again, I don't know, but I'm assuming passionate pickleballers do.
Just the
So
season.
it just feels like the town of Yarmouth has demand for pickleball,
Mhm,
Mhm.
and the town of Yarmouth residents want to play pickleball.
mhm.
And I would say, it would behoove, because that's a fun word to say.
They're very
The recreation, what would behoove the Recreation Commission to try to figure out if that is the right body, and it feels like it could be. Some way to make pickleball players feel better, even if they can't solve the big problem. Could we leave the nets up longer, right?
Right.
Could we? I don't know the answer, and I don't think we're gonna know it here, but.
Could it be looked at by like? I know there's the committee for the Matakees reuse.
There's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that's,
Courts there on the outside.
For sure.
but again, I would call that, Bill, let's just say
Long-term.
between us friends,
Yeah.
that's a multi-year, so that's
Right.
5 years.
Yeah.
Right,
I'm gonna just put
Right.
it bluntly, so.
I think that the easiest thing or the first thing to talk about is I thought that pickleball, and I did talk to Steve about it beforehand. Unfortunately, Anthony Bennett from Recreation couldn't attend today. But I thought they were going to do pickleball courts at Sandy Pond.
So
That
did
was
I.
a phase
I
of that.
thought
So did I.
I think they haven't gotten to that phase.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, so I think that's the quickest thing that could probably happen because we're
Right.
in phase 1 now with the accessible accessible playground and the splash pad.
Right.
So then they could maybe what we say is like prioritize the
Correct.
pickleball courts
Exactly. Sandy Pond.
at Sandy
And,
Pond.
and on top of that, maybe treat them differently in terms of when the nets come down and how long is the pickleball season at Sandy?
Yeah.
Well,
Because clearly it would be way less impact than it is apparently at Flex.
the pickleball nets at a lot of the other places are permanent,
When you say a lot of the other places, do you mean other towns?
towns.
other towns.
Okay.
They're permanent, they're in there and permanent, and the ones in Yarmouth, they pull out and they have this big.
Right.
2.5 foot or whatever, if you get water in there and it freezes,
Sure,
it's gonna destroy, so the whole design of that was kind of silly.
Mhm.
And they used it to justify saving the nets, the wear and tear of the nets, we put them away for the winter because they go down and torn. Well, the tennis nets are up all the time, and that's, that's a small price to pay for.
Or you just take the nets
resurfacing-
down and leave the
resurfacing the whole
leave
thing.
the poles. Yeah.
So,
Who does that? The Parks Department or is it through, who takes the nets down? Do you know?
well, the parks, the recreation suggests a day, and it's usually the pickleball people who do all the maintenance on it.
Okay.
You mean the users themselves? The players?
They put them up and they take them down. They.
Yeah,
pretty
you gotta
much
have,
take
that's
them.
like what we do at the dog park with the Friends of Yarmouth Dog
Sure,
Park.
sure, sure.
They do a lot of the
Yes.
maintenance, because I mean,
Yeah, of course.
we really,
Yeah, I mean,
Keep
the
up
wind
with it.
screens and all
That
that they
makes
put
sense.
up, they really do maintain most of the places. Or that pickleball court.
Okay. I
And I'm
do.
sure they probably maintain any of the other ones we're putting
Right.
in the town.
You could just simply cap those holes, by the way.
They
For the
do
wind-
that.
They
You
do.
can just cap the holes. You can get like a PVC with a cap.
Well, that's
and
what we
just-
do. They
Yeah,
they have a
that's the way
special
to-
path that goes right on
Yeah.
that to keep the water out.
Well, it was worth a few minutes of discussion because it's everywhere. Pickleball, frustration, and opportunity. I think it's equal, right? I think it's people saying, let me just say, as I kept reading comment after comment, why can't they move the camp? Well, I'm gonna say for the record, it's not happening. So, and also I'm gonna say for the record
I heard
politely
that
to my
too.
pickleball friends, the camp was there in 1957 when pickleball was not a thing. So we have to be respectful of the fact that it's been a recreational area since 1957 without pickleball. And so respectfully, I do feel that, again, respectfully, I do feel like that Sandy Pond might be a better solution. While we continue to look at the operational challenges of sharing a facility that is literally a summer day camp in the summer
I think if they had another
and as
place
a
to
primary
go,
use,
like
right?
during that time, it would make a
Right.
difference.
Oh, yeah,
Correct.
what, and I think part of the issue is also because Flax Pond is way out. in the boonies, they
isolated.
can't really monitor it.
Sorry, I just find that funny when, you're driving down White's Path. I don't consider that boom.
Well.
But I
it's-
hear you.
it's-
I hear you.
it's a
The law here.
It's booties if it's that far off a road. Okay, I got you.
Well,
Sorry.
actually, in
Go ahead.
New Jersey, it's boonies,
I
but
know, I understand.
if you had it at Sandy Pond,
Sure.
I mean, everybody's driving by, you can see it all the time, whereas,
Sure.
and a couple of times the camp got busted into anyways, because it's way out.
The
So,
Russo Lodge? that one?
not the loose, well, before they.
Back before
did it,
then, the
it was-
bunks,
yeah.
the old Camp Kirkland bunks were getting. There's all
Trash,
kinds of
yeah.
tomfoolery going on in there. Shenanigans, whatever you'd like to call it, but. In the boonies. Right. So, okay.
Okay.
I think I've exhausted the pickleball topic, unless anyone else wants to continue to exhaust it. Okay, good. Nate and Cassie are like, is it over yet? Okay. And Nate, was there anything else you wanted to add from your takeaways and from the
Well,
takeaway?
One of the things that we heard at the table was that people want that, it's listed here, the restrooms and the maintenance of existing facilities. The rest, basically, the specific comment was that the restrooms were, outdated, but also that, that where they have kids and the ball games end at 8:30 in the evening, the restrooms close at 7, the parents need to go to the bathroom and not open. My pushback from a DPW perspective, though, is that there needs to be a balance, because we also have restrooms being broken into and people just removing the sink or things like that. So maybe we can do a little bit of improvement
Well, I think a lot of I don't know if all the ones we're talking about, but I know the ones at Packet Landing, they're on a timer, so. I think and Kevin Buckland from Parks might not like me suggesting this because they do it, but. If it's a matter of reprogramming them during certain periods,
Right, like
yeah,
July and August.
Right.
For instance.
just to add an hour or two on, that might be an option if that's a big concern. of people.
Yeah, because I would think that would be the time period when there's the most use of the ball fields and stuff goes into the evening, and yeah, I think that's a great.
My point is that
solution.
it's automatic and you don't necessarily need a staff person to come and lock it. Now, maybe they want to send a staff person to make sure it locks anyway. I don't know, but theoretically. It could be automatic is what my point is and not require somebody to physically come down.
Do we know how late the restrooms are open? I've heard very widely varying.
Yeah, different places,
locations.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's no consistency necessarily
think
with when
so.
the restrooms are
It
open.
seems kind of weird.
And again, that ties into communication also. I don't know how it's communicated. Whether it's in-person communication when you approach a
Sign right
restroom,
there,
or if it's something, well, everybody knows that the bathrooms are closed at X and open at Y.
And do they also, one of the reasons why people go in person, and I know before the timer locks, they put something in the door so it stays open.
Yeah.
So
got
they need somebody,
Right,
will they need somebody to go around to make sure that there's nobody
probably,
living in
I'm
there
guessing, I'll
overnight?
say,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's more-
that happens, yeah.
yeah.
I
Christine,
was discussing the bathrooms closing, they close around Columbus Day and they don't open until the spring. I'm up at Grays Beach every Tuesday morning with a breakfast club year round, and the bathrooms are closed, and I was discussing with Steve and I was thinking maybe they could put a porta potty
Yeah.
in the winter months. He said it runs about $125 a month. They would have to be handicapped accessible if it's from the town. And use the revenues from the beach. They get a couple tens of $1,000s for the beach funds. $125 a month for 6 months. Perhaps it could come out of those fees, and have bathrooms. Somebody else discussed the Historical Society walks along South Yarmouth. They start at the Quaker Meeting House and they go on Pleasant Street and everything. And they went to the landing and the bathrooms were closed, Now, if you're gonna have walks for older people, they have to go to the bathroom every 2 hours or so, It would be nice if when the bathrooms are closed in the winter, perhaps if there was a porta potty, for those 6 months, whatever the
Yeah,
opposing months.
I thought about that too, even when the bathrooms are open. If you have porta potties on site too, so if they are closed and
Yeah,
there's always an argument for, and we've had people like down at Packet Landing, well, there's people living in the porta potty.
Yeah.
That was true though.
well, yeah,
Yeah, no, I know, but so. There's always pros and cons, but I thought about that too. Have porta potties also as like a second choice if this is closed after hours or off season. And whatever the maintenance fee is for the company to come clean them out weekly or whatever.
I'm
the
there in the
schedule
winter
is.
time and there's still people walking the
Yeah.
trails and everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that the porta potty might be the answer for the alternate 6 months,
Yeah,
when do the bathrooms close at Packet?
and it's gotta be. End of September, beginning of October, they're winterizing everything there
Yeah.
by
that's-
mid-October.
that's
Cause
just
I
their
always
schedule.
am telling,
Columbus Day.
Yeah.
It's around Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of boats.
They're not
still-
conditioned, so there's no heating in any of these
Right.
restrooms, so they
Yeah.
can't be open all year round.
Yeah.
for
Correct.
Freezing problems.
But
Right.
Columbus Day is kind
A
of
little
early
early. Yeah.
for some of the.
I know Kevin's always itching to, because they want me to winterize the water at the docks when they do that, and I'm like, no, because we still have fishing boats here and I'll
And that's
take
the
my
ones that
chance
want the bathroom.
and I'll deal with it on my own if we have to
Right.
shut the water off and get it blown out earlier, but I try to keep it as long as I can
Yeah.
at the docks.
How long is that usually, Mark?
I chilled, well, yeah, till,
The first scary frost.
yeah, I try to do it.
I'd say
I try to do it in November,
It-
like I just want to get a couple more weeks out of it, because if we get into November, that's when their slip season ends for the commercial guys, and then we go into an off-season rate, and then I'm not as worried about supplying the water.
Well, you also have to, the pipes are all exposed, so you
Yeah.
have to then in consideration,
Right.
probably the first thing.
Right.
So.
So many things to think about. Okay. I think we have just done 1B with a little bit of C, but we now really need to do C, don't we? 1C on our agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm looking at the agenda. That's why they hired me.
Pay you the big bucks.
Right? Aren't we into 1C now?
Yes.
Okay, Cassie, okay with you?
Over there.
I know, but we're getting there. I have a
Only been
feeling
an hour.
numbers 2, 3, and 4 will go really fast. So look at it that way.
There you go.
Yeah, that's.
All right, and it is 10 o'clock, so we're okay.
We're good.
How do we want to approach this, Kathy? Using this big piece of paper?
I
or the
think
different-
so. I think what Cassie tried to do was to take the existing goals and objectives that we have, which I think
Yes, which is
a lot of them are the goals themselves are very solid. I think we need to just maybe adjust and modify, obviously,
Thank you
the
for doing
action
this.
items.
Or thank not you, Cassie, your colleague.
Yeah, it was all Lauren and
Thank you, Lauren. who's not
see
here.
on the right side, she just included notes in red that were items that were supported by the survey or supported by public meeting information. And then we only sent this to Kathy yesterday, so she took a quick look and added notes that you'll see in yellow that say this was completed or other ideas that she had to include. So as you go down through, these should be yellow too. So we added a few ideas that she had it, and we just welcome anything that you have to enhance this, enhance actions or tweak and such things to just bring this up to speed today. It might be a lot to take in too.
Yeah, we have.
I guess I wonder, since we're all just like kind of doing this live,
Yeah,
it might, if anything jumps out in this conversation perhaps, but it might behoove us to review this in the next 2 weeks and then reconvene
I see what you
to.
did there, Cassie. You're actually paying attention, which I appreciate. I would like to see your offer and raise it to, because you guys were kind enough to put the Yarmouth Vision Plan in the packet. I think if we can take a look at this big double-sided piece of paper and also try to look a little bit at the vision plan as well as in a different format, but it might be helpful. You know, the actual 2015 OSRP plan is in our packets.
Yeah.
I think that maybe you're right, not maybe, you are right, that we should take the next 2 weeks to look at this. Unless there's something that absolutely is screaming
Standing
out at you beyond what's already highlighted and written in all caps. Oh my God. Because if you highlighted red and write in all caps and you put it in red, whoa, third grade teachers around the world are
I just
rejoicing.
did that to highlight
I
the
know.
difference between my
How
comments and their comments.
deep.
I,
Does that make sense as a
Yeah.
course of action? I
Yeah.
think basically what Cassie said is right.
I guess I would like people to keep in mind, when you're talking about thinking about action items, we're talking about things that we want to do in the next 7 years. So let's
Right.
keep 7 years in mind.
Okay.
And let's keep them realistic. Like if we put in, construct an community center, maybe that's too bold. We don't know based on this survey whether that's something, but maybe we start saying things like, consider recreational opportunities in a possible community center, and maybe it's at the former Matakees Middle School or other locations as part of the reuse analysis. Because I think what I heard a lot from people too was keep the fields at Matakees. Those are important. So we just want to make sure that recreation, and I know it's already on the radar screen for the Matakees Reuse Committee to look at recreation, but just kind of emphasize that that might be a good place to look at that. And then maybe it's more like, evaluate, further public support for a community center. Right now, the town of Yarmouth has a lot on their plate. We have wastewater, big ticket item there. And we also have the library, which is much further along than a community center. So there's things that need to kind of work the way through the capital improvement plan before we get into something where what could we really afford and advocate for a community center, even though there might be something that people like, I like the idea, but once you start talking money and locations and all that stuff, people.
As a
people
quick
vary.
corollary, Kathy, can you just say for the record, because I don't know the answer, what is the status of the Mattakese Freeze Committee? Because I haven't seen a ton of movement in 6 months,
Yeah, I think it.
I don't know, is it
I'm
actually?
not even sure a committee's been
I don't think the
formed.
committee. is it.
Yeah, I think
The
it's in its
funding-
infancy.
The funding was approved at fall town meeting, and
Right.
that's the last I heard. And in all fairness, I think Bill Scott
Yeah.
is advocating that, but he's been busy with the
Of
finance
course.
committee, the
No,
budget,
but-
the diff, so he's concentrating on that
And I get
before he
that.
moves on to.
I'm just
but
saying
yeah.
that it fits into the idea that we're talking about 7-year goals. The Mattakese Committee hasn't even had its first meeting yet.
Oh, it'll be,
You would imagine there'll be a 24-month process.
yes,
Because it also involves a consultant and all the other things I saw when they made the presentation to the select
Yes.
board back in September. So all of a sudden, it's 24 months from probably the fall,
right,
I'm gonna guess, until they have their first meeting.
Right.
So now you're talking,
Years.
you know,
Yeah.
you're right.
Already
It just puts into
Yeah.
context about how we can approach our next meeting of this group in terms of recommendations and things like
Well, maybe we could, like Anthony's not here, but maybe we could follow up on some things that are in the works, like you said.
that.
Confirm that is the pickleball court in phase
Right.
3 at Sandy Pond, and then could that be an action item? Because we know it's gonna happen.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and also it does, and if it is as attainable as we think,
Right,
then it does help us when we finally get to the end of our process.
right.
That we can communicate some of this back through recreation and to the pickleball folks themselves, like, okay, we heard you.
the other thing is
Exactly.
taking advantage of the things that we already have in the works, like I sent this to Lauren and Cassie, it was like completing that inventory of ways to water to create a prioritized list of improvements, admin actions and use guidelines. I
Right.
took that out of your thing, for
Right.
CPA. And then the other thing is we did get funding for that recreational capital assessment, so complete that assessment. Capital assessment improvement plan for recreation that was funded at the fall town meeting also, and identify capital needs for parks, playgrounds and fields. That's in the works already. Let's put that in as an action.
Yeah.
item.
Right.
So
And then
just
maybe
keep
we
that
get
in
a map
mind.
out of that. In other words, maybe that helps us get something that we can use to help communicate and educate the town.
Right.
Yeah, and
As-
I think this
Because
will
we're
be a
already
good
doing
doc-
it as opposed to starting something.
This would be a
new.
great document that will help to identify the capital improvements that are needed. So when people are talking about, oh, some of the playground equipment
Right.
isn't great, that's gonna come out of that assessment. And oh, these fields are bad, or we need more fields and that type of
Right.
thing. I think that will come out of that.
And the
assessment.
same with the wastewater, that, so it's an inventory and assessment, and what I'm looking to do is make a map, maybe even an interactive map that will indicate all of public access wastewater, boat ramps, fishing piers. So this is something I'm excited about, but that's something that, yeah, definitely
Within
is
7
an
years.
action item, you know,
Say yes.
yes,
With the-
I hope within
Well, we'll just say
a
with-
year, 2 years.
And there's other things too
Yeah.
from a lot of other studies that we've done. I know when we did take a look at putting, some type of bike path from the Bayberry down to Route 28.
Mhm.
That kind of ended up being, don't pave our trails. That's
Yeah.
kind of what came out of it, which is great. But part of it also that came out of that was things like, investigate becoming a complete streets community. And I don't know whether Nate will want to chime in on that. And then the possibility of creating some type of bike and pedestrian committee. Those committees usually
Hmm.
are needed.
Sidewalks and other.
Yeah,
Multi-use.
yeah, exactly. The complete streets will, first thing that you do is like a master plan of where you need sidewalks and that type of thing. So that I think that unto itself would be a good project. And I think the Cape Cod Commission has been doing a lot of those for other communities and they might be able to help. So I don't know, Nate, whether there's anything going on with that I'm not aware of.
Well, Kathy, there's not anything that I'm aware of, but I'm a big fan of complete streets. It really, it basically brings up the whole area. But I mean, yeah, I think we as part of the Higgins Kroll shared use path project, we are looking, we have been showing people the current sidewalk network that we have through town, and it's significant. It's a good thing. So
Can we do a little remedial on the complete streets thing?
Oh,
Like-
I'm sorry. That's when you would add in like bike lanes
Yeah.
and sidewalks
Yeah.
to like any like road improvements that you're
Gotcha.
doing.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, it's like you get used to saying.
Right.
yeah, I mean, complete streets is
Afraid to
awesome.
ask.
It's small money, but you can have a big impact on the surrounding areas. Things basically, people start to really like the looks of an area where we've done the complete streets, and then they decide, okay, I want to establish my business here, and then there's more tax money for the town, and it can snowball, which is a good thing.
I also think it'll help with that connectivity between the different recreation areas that people were talking about, so it can.
And where is the bike trail? It's going from the police department south.
Well, I
The
think
shared
it's
use
connecting.
pathway?
Well, it's
I
going
think-
up to the Rotary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna go from Buck Island Road on the east side of Higgins Scroll all the way up to and past the Rotary and connect in with the parking lot with the phase 3 of the Cape Cod Rail Trail.
Right, to Willow Street.
It's going
Yeah.
north.
North.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was going south.
No, it's going-
There
But
was
people
a,
were asking for it to come south.
yes,
I think they wanted to go to 28, right?
There's-
Sorry to interrupt.
There's a center section that's done. Oh,
That's
yeah.
done already.
Well,
that's
that's already
phase
done.
1 of a 2-phase project that Nate's working in.
Yeah,
Is
actually,
it going north or is it going south?
North.
It's going both, it's gonna go south to
Okay.
Buck Island. I don't think you made it all the way. You're like, you did the center section, Nate?
Yeah,
Right.
that's correct. Yeah, because it was easy. It was next to town property. The thorny sections are what we're dealing with right now. Phase 2, there's a phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 3 is hopefully complete by the end of the spring 24. So that's phase 2 is out to bid right now, and phase 3 probably going out to bid in the fall.
Cool.
Phase 3 is much bigger, which will connect the dots.
because I know they have to build a.
Yeah, because
So-
I saw the easement notice.
So it would be Buck Island all the way to the Rotary and then eventually to Willow Street.
Well,
Eventually.
then it connects to the Cape Cod Rail
Right,
Trail,
which is,
goes
which is to
to
Willow Street.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. Phase 3 of the rail trail goes from the golf course to Willow and beyond, I think, to the Barnstable town line, which,
Yeah.
and that's in final design right
Right,
now, I believe.
yes.
Is Barnstable working on that at all?
Yeah, they're connecting and they're going all the way down to Mary Dunn Road, and then they have a small little parking lot
Nice.
that they're proposing as
Okay.
well.
I know they've been
Very cool.
tardy.
Very cool.
Yeah. They had some trouble, I think, going through that. Isn't there like some fisheries, wildlife?
Oh,
thing
yes,
there?
there's
So it
state,
took-
yeah.
So it took a while. They had to do that whole legislative Article 97 thing.
Lord.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that took a little while.
So you were saying, Kathy, you were giving some direction to everybody
Yeah, just
about thinking about. the
7 years
7 years
realistic,
and
take,
actionable.
action items, take advantage of all the great stuff we're doing. This is not the first time we've thought about this. We have a
Yeah.
lot of great information through the visioning process and other studies that we've done that have made some suggestions and recommendations, even, some of the local comprehensive plan had some implementation action items. I'll take a look at some of those and see if there's things, and maybe I can coordinate with you, Brittany, and maybe some of those things, we want to take into incorporate in. I know you guys are proposing some wetland regulation changes. I know that's related to floodplain, but maybe it's more than that. We can kind of,
Yeah, it's
you're doing it
definitely
anyway.
More than that, looking to add protections to vernal pools, and we're going
Okay.
to be proposing a new resource area that is the coastal resiliency zone. So there is lots of new regulations coming. Hopefully DEP is also working on some climate regulations, and having the floodplain regulations be promulgated by the state as well. They've been saying that for over a year and a half now, so
Yeah.
really waiting on that. And this week we had meetings with DEP staff, and they're not giving us timelines, so. I don't know if that was shorter and shorter, yeah.
Yeah, there's woefully overworked and understaffed because we're having difficulty even with all the wastewater stuff too, getting some responses. So they're busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, but they love saying, well, in 5 years, you guys have to have all your
Yeah.
septic fixed,
Oh.
Again, it's funny how, where their timelines,
Physically impossible.
right, exactly. Well, I'm assuming and hoping and praying, right, Kathy, that because of our wastewater plans, that we will not have to fall into that if it actually does stay in existence. the
Yes.
5-year time.
Vote for it at annual town meeting.
Right, right.
And
Send a message to the state. Sorry.
We are number one on the SRF 0% funding list, which is huge, huge. We don't want to do anything that drops us off of that. So we want to vote for this at the annual town meeting.
That hasn't been offered in 50 years.
I mean, we are like right at the top. So we just need to kick the ball over the.
Although the article in the Cape Cod Times yesterday, that was much more of a state article about wastewater, mentioned the Cape and mentioned places on the Cape that are working on wastewater and did not mention the town of Yarmouth.
Can't help that.
No, I know.
I swear to God, Cape Cod
I would-
Times doesn't even know Yarmouth exists.
Well, no, but I mean, this wasn't even an article, but this wasn't right. But this wasn't an article written by the Cape Cod Times. It was,
Oh,
It's
But-
USA
Okay.
Today.
well, but I meant it was whatever from the Boston
yeah, I
based
get it.
people, but like even they aren't even aware that we're on the
Far
way,
along.
and
Yeah,
that
far
that
along.
is a little bit disappointing. Like, in other words, they mentioned, was it Orleans, right, has a huge sewer project going on, and
They've started already.
And Hyannis or Barnstable's always got something going, but. anyway.
So I don't know whether you guys want to think about it over the next week and then maybe give me some ideas and I'll take some of my ideas and then maybe we can work with Cassie to kind of come up with a document that we can review in detail at the next meeting in 2 weeks. So maybe if we have like a week or so, if you can get me, send me an email about your thoughts and
Sure.
I will send that out.
And Kathy, would you mind communicating
Email.
that?
Yeah.
Either
To
if you
everybody.
can today or maybe by Monday, if
Yep.
that's possible, just because of the folks that aren't here.
Yeah,
Kathy,
As a reminder.
I'll send you this document again, because I incorporated your comments that you had emailed, plus some thoughts that were discussed, so I'll send you latest and greatest.
thank
Okay,
you. Perfect.
so that feels like 1C, check on the agenda. Now we're at 1D, setting the second public meeting timeframe and discuss high-level options of meeting format. Hooray, don't all start talking at once.
I think it gets into booking the hearing room. So
Yeah.
we can only guarantee that the hearing room would be open every second and fourth Wednesdays of each month. Because that's the opposite planning board and there's no one that's filled that spot. So it's either things like April 12th or the next time would be, I believe, May. There's one at the end of April, but it's like the same week. Yeah, and we may even be at town meeting that
No,
day.
don't say such. Don't say such.
So I don't think
such
so,
things,
but I'm
Kathy.
just saying, so the 26th is out because I don't
Well,
think, you're not gonna get people to go to two big meetings in
No.
one night.
No.
So the next one would be the 10th, May 10th or April 12th.
Yeah, I know I'm no good, April 12th, but don't hold it up just for me. I'm definitely no good on that day. May 10th, I'm probably fine.
What's everybody's belly button tell them? Before we talk about specifics, is it second,
I think we
second
need
week
to,
of April or second week of May? Yeah. and
I think we need
wanna
to
also-
ask Cassie if she could be
Yeah.
ready by the 12th. I think that's
Right.
probably the key.
It's okay to say no, Cassie, I'm gonna say that.
I mean, I guess it's hard to say if we'll be ready, because I'm just not sure we haven't discussed what we're presenting.
Well, let me ask
So-
you a
About the
different way.
26th.
Would May 10th,
That's the-
May
the day
10th
after
wouldn't knock us
town
off track, right?
meeting.
May
I
10th
know
would still
it's- I don't
keep
think
us within the
gonna come. That
parameters
would've been
that we said back in December, right?
Because I don't know if I'll be here. on
Yeah.
the 10th.
You know what
mean, think-
Like,
Schedules shift, and I think, so my sense is that we'll be talking about validating these goals and objectives with the
Yeah.
group, and it's a lot to get through. It's like we would likely have boards that have all the goals and action items and ask people to go through them and
Sure.
validate them, something like that, I guess, just high level what I'm thinking, but we need to make sure we're all comfortable with the goals and objectives and action items before we do that. If we feel like we can get there before the April 12th timeframe, then fine. If we feel like we need more time, then I would suggest May.
I'm gonna strongly suggest May.
Alright.
Is anybody opposed to that? Okay, we're not taking a vote, because we don't have to.
Can
Can
I
it give us time
Kathy-
to
Just synthesize.
proofread and look
And
at
also
what you're gonna
synthesize.
present too?
Yeah, I guess I just want to run by Cassie. We have an expired open space and rec plan. Right now, the state has us as being active because they do it July 1st of each year. Is it possible to have a draft in by, it seems like it may not be possible to have a draft in by June before the end of the fiscal year. Is that if we have our meeting in May, or do you think that that's possible? I'd really like to have a draft in before the end of the fiscal year. Granted, we can still, like you had said, talk to the different committees and get more input, but at least the draft is into the state.
Yeah, I think we can get started on updating the language within the actual report as a parallel track, so that we're like loading in the action items right after that meeting, and that helps speed up the timeline.
I know that
Um,
people provided a bunch of information already to you. I know Brittany had some comments. I know Christine had some comments. You're going to be incorporating those into the edits that had, okay, perfect. All right.
Yep.
All right.
So it sounds
Yeah.
like May
You're good, right, Kathy? As long as the draft is in, you're still eligible for grants. It doesn't have to be final by the end of the month of June.
All right, so we talked about May 10th. And the high level options of meeting format. I think Cassie touched on it a little bit on boards. Is there anything else high level you want to say? I can't wait 2 more weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are gonna want people to respond to what goals we're presenting and what the action items are. So that's the main objective of that meeting in my mind. So,
Can I ask you
So-
a question, Cassie? Is that information that we can get better through a survey versus a meeting? I just feel like we had 10 people come to the meeting and we had 467 people respond to the survey. This survey would be very
Streamlined.
very simple. It'd kind of be like our second visioning survey
Yeah.
where we had identified what we wanted. We just
Right.
wanted to make sure we were on the right track.
Validating or.
And agree strong, that it would just be a quick boom, 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 boom. People did add a few comments just on things, but mostly we were fortunate. I think we'd hit most of the goals pretty accurately.
Is that a method that you've used in other communities at this stage?
yeah, I mean, that's why Kathy in email, I was like, does an actual in-person meeting make sense? Because you're asking people like provide on the spot feedback for things that they really need to like sit and think about. And a survey is not a bad idea if you are open to not,
I
you
mean,
know,
I
if
haven't
you're okay
met
with
a
not
lot of-
having that in-person thing.
I haven't met a lot of people that are all, that want to add more meetings to the in-person meetings to their lives. And then when I meet those people, I would like to not be on their committee. So, I'd like to take this under very serious advisement, and I'd like us to hold May 10th on our calendars. I think we can do both and then see where we are in a couple weeks. How do you feel about
I
that?
think that's great. I just feel like you're gonna get a small,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Sampling with a
history is gonna
workshop.
probably repeat itself. You see, you
Yeah.
reached a lot more people through the survey
Yeah.
process.
and people were passionate, people were detailed,
Right,
people were,
they commented. They had,
people were
Yeah.
throwing all kinds of
yeah.
Yeah.
stuff against the,
Because
what.
they had the time to think
You
about
know
it
what,
instead of
against
being on
the
the spot.
Oh, it's more
Exactly.
convenient.
Yeah.
it is more convenient. I think people, if they know, oh, can I take the survey? I go to a meeting. I'm just gonna take the survey.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we got a low turnout at the
Right.
meeting, because people are like, I'll just do the
Yeah.
survey.
And looking at the ages of the respondents, there were kids that responded to the survey, at least according to the survey.
Yeah.
The schools did a great job
Yes,
getting
the
the word out
schools
for
were
us.
a huge,
They did a good job.
plus, so thank you, schools.
Yeah, they did good.
Just for the
Care what
information
they
of the
do.
committee, there was several comments where we should be.
Well, hold on one second. I just want to make sure we're okay with May 10th as a placeholder and a to be continued on the whether we need May 10th when we meet again in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, there were several comments about we should be reaching out to certain parcels, especially in Yarmouthport and everything, and just everybody knows I have reached out to these parcels and the owners and not putting.
On
the
behalf
parcels up
of
for sale.
the open.
Oh,
For
Oh,
open
thank
space,
you.
you know,
Okay,
they were
No,
talking about the
yeah.
parcels along the south side of the Boy Scout property. I
Yeah.
reached out to
Yeah.
Mr. Wiggins. There's another property.
oh, you
up-
have, okay.
Yeah, several times.
he's got a full.
He never even got a response, There's another parcel up by Green Teal. I reached out for that, no response, et cetera. Currently, there are 2 parcels we're looking into, so we
Okay.
constantly reach out, however, they're not for sale. We can't purchase them, of course, But that's an ongoing
Yes,
thing that, open
Yes.
space.
That's
is
good to know.
Yeah.
so. I have checked everything off under number 1. Is there anything else that we missed on those A, B, C, and D? I don't believe so.
I think we were
Kathy?
pretty thorough.
You good? I'll take that as, you just not. I just want to make sure. All right. Meeting minutes. Oh, I love minutes. And thank you to Kathy and
Laura, yeah.
who?
Lauren did the
Oh,
20.
thank you, Lauren.
She does them, yeah. I'm gonna be doing the minutes from now on, so they can concentrate on
Okay.
other scope items.
Would you like separate motions or? can
Yes,
we have?
please,
Oh,
separate.
boy, we're getting some. Okay.
Oh,
May I have a motion, please, on the minutes of January 27, 2023?
So moved.
Thank you. Christine.
Second,
And a second. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. So, Steve Szansky, Christine Marzigliano,
Aye.
Gail Charette, Ellie Lawrence.
I,
Will Rubenstein, aye.
Perfect.
Sounds like 3 to not here.
0.
Okay. 3 to not here. All right. Can I have a motion on the minutes of February 8th, 2023.
So moved.
Okay, wow, it happened again. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will take a vote, please. Steve Savansky. Christine Merzigliano.
Aye.
Gail is it Charette or Charette?
I say charrette.
Okay, Gail Charette. I should pronounce her name right after 7 meetings.
Mhm.
Ellie Lawrence.
I,
Will Rubenstein, aye. Thank you. Minutes done. Upcoming meetings of this group. We just talked about meeting in 2 weeks. Everybody have that on there?
I will not be here. Just
Thank you for the heads
as a
up.
heads
Ellie.
up.
Okay,
Should be having fun.
I hope so.
well, you still have time to submit all the good
Yes,
things that
yes,
that would
yes.
make Cassie and Kathy very
I
happy.
do.
It'll be here in this room at 9 a.m. I will most likely be some big head on the screen. Your heads are fine. Mine is just happens to be bigger. And then April 7th is still on everybody's books as well. I mean, those just happen to be the next 2.
Yep.
So just
That's so.
to keep us on track, so we're always looking a couple meetings ahead. So nobody's surprised when they say you didn't tell us about the meeting. Well, guess what? We did. And letter C here is now NA.
Right.
So that's not happening, which is good. And any new business not unreasonably expected. I can't remember if that's the term, but I've seen it in other places.
Yeah.
No,
I would just note that we've been digitizing the site evaluation forms. I need to go through them and make sure that my chicken scratch was picked up appropriately. And then we will share those with Kathy shortly in the next week or so.
that's nice.
That's one thing that we're gonna have to do is I think you had talked about needing to get into the buildings. So we need to coordinate, Cassie and I need to talk
Like
about
another
that.
visit,
Yeah, because they couldn't get into any of the buildings at the time.
because of the time of year.
Because of the time. Yeah.
Makes sense, ties into all the other things we're talking about.
So we should
That's
talk
what's bad.
about that, Kathy, figuring out how to get that done so that we can get the we have to have the ADA transition.
Right,
plan
right.
completed, so we need to do that.
And depending on when you come,
Sorry, you'll see some notations in the spreadsheet of like items that we noticed in the evaluations that were coming up. So it's just helpful context for recommendations.
and are those site walks that you want members of this group to come on with you again?
No,
Probably not.
no. I think it'd be probably trying to get Kevin Buckland or somebody, I don't
Who
know,
has a key?
who has a
Master
key.
key.
Yes.
Or what the- I vote for a lot of them. I think.
Well, like the
You let
Flex
me know.
Pond, they couldn't get into Flex Pond.
They couldn't get into anything,
Yeah,
Right.
so.
And also, as we've already discussed, make sure you use the bathroom before you start the tour.
Yeah.
Okay,
never pass up
just
that
saying for the
chance.
record, it's important, because it will be in most likely March or April and some stuff won't be open. Okay, thank you, Cassie. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, people in person.
Adjourn.
Thank you, Steve. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Oh, this time we'll take it from Ellie with a second. I'm not allowing any discussion. Sorry. Sorry about that public record. And let's vote. Steve Zadansky. Ellie,
Aye,
Christine,
Hi.
wait, who did I miss? Gail,
Gail.
Will, I. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
See you again. You get 30 minutes of your life back.